Hey, it's Brett, the founder of the Smart Detox Facebook group. Sitting here in the sauna. Wanted to share this absolutely profound thing that I've discovered recently after struggling with sleep issues for the longest time. It's been problematic despite doing everything right. And when I say everything right, like nutty, extreme, like everything. Light exposure, blue light blockers, blue light screen protectors, no screens, going outside, food timing, sleep angle, tilted bed, blue light blockers, north facing bed, exact right room temperature. The list goes on and on. I mean, keep in mind, I've been studying sleep on and off for the last quarter of a century, since 2000 or so is my earliest memory of researching sleep. And I discovered something more profound that literally nobody that I've seen has figured out. And I'm going to share that with you in this video, but you're going to have to be patient because I have to give you a little bit of background, because if I just say what it is, you'll be like, well, that's weird. Well, of course, in any profound discovery at first, people are going to be like, well, that's weird. But that's why I'm going to lay the background. And when you start to get better sleep because of this tip, everything improves. Everything improves because sleep is a weak link that all of us have, and we're all doing it wrong. Everybody's doing it wrong. Everybody's doing it wrong. And if you know me very well, I don't make confident statements unless I'm highly, highly certain, because I have a reputation to maintain. And the difference between like this video and just some random video on YouTube is I have credibility. I've run this group for a decade, helped thousands of you improve your health. So I'm going to share that information in this video. But first, I want to let you thank the sponsor of this video, which are the good folks in our group that have been kind enough to order their sauna through me or refer somebody that orders the sauna through me, because that is how I keep the lights on and keep the sauna going during the 20-degree weather here. Sorry, I'm sitting in the sauna here, and my phone is on a bracket, a custom-made bracket outside the sauna, so that you can enjoy the view of the lake in northern Idaho and the ski slope, Schweitzer Mountain Resort, right across the lake there. Kind of a crazy year snow-wise. Up till now, Florida's gotten more snow than we have in North Idaho, which is crazy. Okay, so let me give you a background of a mindset that you have to have, a paradigm that you have to have in order to get things right in the natural world. And this is going to tie into sleep. So you really have to, instead of looking at modern fads and trends and quote science and popular things and, oh, this worked for me, so this will work for you. You really have to look at what humans have done for a long time. That's how you get things right. So, for example, when they vilified eggs and everybody, they were saying, oh, eggs are bad for you. I'm like, that's preposterous. Humans have been eating eggs for thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. So you can't convince me with any magical fairy dust of propaganda that eggs are bad for you. Now, sure, certain, eggs from chickens fed, improper production, sure, you could argue that there's some issues there, but keeping things the same, then it's in terms of the production or similar. Eggs aren't necessarily bad for you. In fact, they're actually a very healthy food. Same is true with butter. They did the same thing with butter. They did the same thing with animal fat. They're like, oh, saturated fat is bad for you. They propagandized people for quite some time, and people bought into it. Had they had the right paradigm of what have humans done for thousands of years, then they would have gotten it right. Same with sunlight exposure. They say, oh, the sun's bad. Stay out of the sun. Slather yourself with sunscreen. And now they're finally showing that actually people who wear sunscreen get more cancer than those that don't, and the sun's crucial for human health. And it's like, well, any person with any sort of historical wisdom would have said, well, humans have been outside for most of history for thousands of years. Now, sure, too much sun can be bad, but it's like they were exposed to sunlight, infrared from the sun, full spectrum, UVB, massive amounts of light, full spectrum light. And so to say, well, that's bad for you, that's like saying air is bad for you. It's just preposterous. It's a propaganda campaign by the people who profit from you being sick. And that's the thing to keep in mind is that there have been these propaganda campaigns. And here's the problem, is once one generation buys into a propaganda campaign, who buys into it successfully, then what happens is you no longer have to create this propaganda to brainwash people, because the parents will teach their kids it because they bought into it, right? It's like, oh yeah, got to put on sunscreen. They don't even question anymore. You don't even have to perpetuate the propaganda campaign very much. Okay, so getting to sleep. We have been propagandized to believe, and this is going to be a paradigm shift. This is not an easy thing to wrap your head around for most people. Some people are really good at shifting their paradigms quickly. Most people aren't. But when you see it from an evolutionary historical perspective, you're like, you just can't. It's like somebody saying, well, hey, veganism is the best diet. And it's like, well, humans through all of history have eaten animal products. Like that's a new age experiment at best. So sure, I mean, they might technically be right, but talk to me in 10 generations after we see a multi-generational culture on a vegan diet, which we've never seen in history. So it's an experiment. So why not just do what we know has worked for humans for thousands of years? Just like with cows. Cows for thousands of years have eaten grass, mostly grass. And now it's like they're feeding them grain. Now imagine the cows at the lot, and that one guy says, yeah, I'm not feeling very good on the grain. They're like, come on, bro, this stuff's good for you. Everybody else is eating it. It's fine. Corn, it's corn and soy. That's what we're supposed to eat. Like I saw the ads. I saw it's what everybody's doing. But if they thought, well, wait a minute, what if cows eaten for thousands of years? They'd be like, well, grass, weeds, these sorts of things. And they'd be a lot healthier if they just ate grass, right? It's the same with sleep, same with humans. So, what happened is we have this belief that we're supposed to sleep continuously. We're just going to say, for the sake of this argument, for the sake of this discussion, we're going to say that 8 hours is about the optimal sleep time. Just, it doesn't matter if it's 7 or if it's 9 or whatever, somewhere around there. But we're just going to say 8 to so that we don't have to get into that detail. So let's say that we need 8 hours of sleep at night. So we're taught, go to bed at 9 o'clock, get up at 5 o'clock, whatever, 8 hours, right? That's how you're supposed to sleep. Okay, great. That's what we've all been taught. That's the propaganda. That's what we all believe. And every sleep expert will tell you the same thing. They all talk about it. Get 8 hours of sleep. Well, 8 hours of continuous sleep, right? That's what they say. One block of sleep. Okay, cool. Well, I've been trying to do that, and I've been doing everything right, and it hasn't been working. And I am extreme about health. Like, I cook all my own foods. I don't go out to eat. I don't eat any seed oils. 100% organic. I have natural spring water piped into the house. I exercise every day. I use a sauna 3 or 4 times a week. Like, I'm extreme. I avoid toxins. Like, even extreme people think I'm extreme. And yet, I was having trouble sleeping, and I thought there was something wrong with me. It's like, oh, I must have blood sugar issues. That's weird, because I'm waking up after 3 to 5 hours, and I can't get back to sleep. What's wrong with me? Now, I'm not saying that if a person is so fatigued that it's not possible to get, a continuous block of 7 or 8 hours of sleep. But I'll tell you this, it's not ideal. It's not ideal at all. How do we know this? Because when you study people, pre-industrialized people, which, keep in mind, we're talking 99% or more of human history, when you study the sleep patterns of these people, what you find is that they did what's called biphasic sleep. Biphasic sleep. Hey, Carrie, Valentina, Barbara, Rick, everyone else, thanks for watching. Rick, thanks for getting your sauna through me. I greatly appreciate it. So they did what's called biphasic sleep. Biphasic sleep, which is bi means two, and so they did their sleep in two sections. So they'd go to sleep, which is what I figured out actually works for me. I thought, well, something's wrong with me, but I found something that works. What I found that works is I get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and then I wake up, and then I do some things for a couple hours, and then I go back to bed for another, few hours until I'm at about 7.5 or so. Seems to be about what I get. Maybe 8. Depends, but somewhere in there. If it's a little bit low, I might take a short little nap. And then I started doing that, and it's like, well, this works for me, but I thought, well, there's something wrong with me. Something wrong with me. I don't know why I have to do this, doggone it. Well, it turns out that this is what humans have done through all of history. Now you think, well, Brett, that's a pretty bold claim. Well, I did some research on this. And here are a handful of examples of ancient cultures that did biphasic sleep, where they would sleep for 3, 4, 5 hours, get up for a couple hours, sleep for a few more hours until it added up to about 8 hours. Ancient Rome, they did this. Pre-industrial Europe, keep in mind, part of what happened, part of the reason this changed was because of indoor lighting, artificial lighting other than like candles, as well as the Industrial Revolution. So they wanted good workers. So they propagandized the people into saying, hey, you need 8 hours of sleep, so that way you can get up the next day at bright and early and go to work for us all day. And yeah, major propaganda campaign. Anything that is against what humans have done for thousands of years is going to create massive health problems. I absolutely can guarantee you it. How can I guarantee you that? Because we are adapted to certain behaviors, and we cannot just overnight, over a generation or two, we can over many, like hundreds of generations, we can slowly change, but we can't change in the span of a few generations or a few hundred years, not even close. Otherwise, and you might disagree with that, but think about this. When you see African Americans in the northern climates, they are massively maladapted because they have dark skin. They're not getting enough UV. They're not getting enough infrared from the sun. They're massively vitamin D deficient. So do you see in a couple generations the African Americans in northern climates, do you see them getting lighter and lighter skin? Just adapting fairly quickly? And then you see white people in the southern, in South Africa and, in more tropical regions. Do you see them in the tropics? Do you see them getting darker and darker skin? I mean, other than a tan temporarily. Do you see permanent adaptations? No. Evolutionarily, that takes just generations in humans, in moths and things like that. It's different, right? Insects can adapt very quickly, but mammals don't. And so every culture that I looked into, that I saw good data on, Native Americans, Aboriginal Australians, they all did biphasic sleep. Medieval Islamic countries, Eastern Asian cultures, these people all did biphasic sleep. Now they would do different things when they would get up. Sometimes they would get up and tend their livestock because predators come out at night, and so they'd go hey, check on the livestock. Or they would get up and say, hey, are there any predators scoping us out? Because a long continuous 8-hour sleep time period would make you vulnerable to that's a long time to be asleep, a long time for the grizzly bear to catch your scent and hike across the mountain and eat you. But if you're awake after 3-4 hours, now you're making noise again, you're less likely to be preyed upon. So that's kind of an evolutionary explanation for it. There's more. I'm giving you kind of the surface level here. East Asian cultures, Sub-Saharan Africa, they were the ones that tended their livestock. Pre-Columbian Americans, pre-Columbus Americans. I can't read my own handwriting. The Mayans and Aztecs did the same thing. Biphasic sleep. Biphasic sleep. Ancient and medieval India. Biphasic sleep. All these groups were doing biphasic sleep. None of them were doing a continuous straight 8 hours of sleep. And there are actually some cultures that did kind of an interesting split that is different than the sleeping for a couple hours. And by the way, I do have an actionable way on how to do this. I never just give you some theoretical, random, philosophical garbage nonsense to pontificate and try to make myself look smart or something. I want to help you heal. I want you to have better health. And so I'm going to share with you a very actionable way on how to do this. But some of these cultures in very hot regions, especially during the summertime, what they would do is they would get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep at night. Speaking of hot, I'm in my sauna right now, and I've been in here for 20 minutes. I cracked that door open just a little bit because it's getting a bit warm in here. And so they would sleep for 5 hours or so, and then they would get up and do their chores and then work. And then when it got really hot out, where it's like, oh yeah, this is brutal, they would take a siesta, as I'm sure you've heard of, and for 3, maybe 4 hours, because it's like, well, hey, we can't be productive during this time. And so there are slight variations in the theme. And keep in mind that even the people that were in that area, they were evolutionarily adapted from a hormonal and enzyme, all the different microbiome, all the different aspects, because all their ancestors did that, right? Like they weren't moving across the globe to a new location. They were adapted to that environment, and their circadian rhythms were adapted for that and everything else. And so there is some slight variation in that, in the same way that there's a variation in diet. Most human cultures, when you study nutritional anthropology, they're omnivores, but there's definitely various percentages of meats to carbs to fats, and the same is true with sleep. But the principle of biphasic sleep is almost everywhere I look in indigenous cultures, in primitive cultures. So basically what I'm saying is all your ancestors slept this way. And I'm telling you, when you follow people like Mary Enig, who actually go and live with these cultures, these people are ridiculously healthy. Like 80-year-old women jumping high up and down, hiking up mountains, carrying 30-pound satchels of rye. Like it sounds unbelievable. But when you actually listen to people that have lived with these cultures for extended periods of time, which Mary Enig, I'll think of her last name in a minute. Maybe some of you guys know it. They find that these cultures are extremely healthy. And so when you have biphasic sleep, when you create that, you're going to feel so much better. Why? Because you're actually optimizing your sleep. And none of the sleep scientists have figured this out yet, because they're all looking within their own modern paradigm of one continuous block. Nobody is questioning this assumption, which it's a heck of an assumption. And you look at people in modern times, and I mean, this just tells you everything you need to know. Gotta have my cup of coffee before I even become human. So in other words, they're so dang fatigued that they need this like massive stimulant to suppress their sleep hormone so that they can even feel human again. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason is because they're not doing biphasic sleep. Definitely all the natural health aspects that we've talked about in this group, that other people talk about, they're all important. Room temperature, they're not wrong about those things. All those things are important. They're all important. Light hygiene. All those things are super, super important. But even if you're doing all those and you're like me, you were trying to cram in 8 hours of sleep, like willpower, like, okay, well, I'll try taking tart cherries before I go to bed because that's high in melatonin. I'll try just like meditating. I'll try like doing all these relaxation techniques. I'll try these herbs. Nothing worked. And I live in a very natural environment. So like there's no EMFs where I'm at. Like no neighbors have Wi-Fi because there's no neighbors. I don't have any Wi-Fi in the house. There's no blue light after sunset. Almost no light after sunset. But when I started doing biphasic sleep, instead of suffering, I got my quality of life back. Got my energy back. Started feeling much, much, much better. And it turns out that that's because that's the way humans are supposed to sleep. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, well, Brett, that's all fine and good for you. Like you work from home, you run the group, you can get up early, post in the group, go back to sleep for a few hours. But man, I've got a minivan and kids and school and, I got to drop them off at school and then I got to go work and, I've got a life, man. Like I don't have that luxury. Well, I think that there's a workaround that'll work for most people that want to improve their health. Now, it's a different way of thinking. What's the saying that you can't solve a problem? I think Einstein said this, you can't solve a problem at the same level of consciousness that you created it at. So obviously to make a shift, you're going to have to rethink things. But when you realize the importance, what if I'm right? What if I'm right? And biphasic sleep would help every single aspect of your health because if sleep is the weakest link in your chain and you fix that weakest link, everything improves. And so it's worth trying. It's worth trying. Now, how do you try it? Okay, so we're going to take the average person in the United States because I'm talking to a lot of people right now. I'm getting nervous, starting to sweat. Oh, wait. That's because I'm in the sauna. I didn't know that's why I had sweaty palms. So for the average person, most people go to bed around 10 o'clock. Now, what are most people doing between 8 and 10 p.m.? Well, the answer is not much. Now, hey, if you're somebody who works 2 full-time jobs back to back, I don't know what to tell you. God bless you, and I hope you find a single job that pays twice as much, so you only have to work 1 8-hour shift. But most of us have free time in the evenings between 8 and 10, especially if we work on it. And most people go to bed around 10 o'clock, or some people go to bed around 9 o'clock, and they're kind of just watching TV or, doing some light chores or whatever between 7 and 9 or between 8 and 10, right? So here's what I'm suggesting is why not try, and by the way, you want to always incrementally, you don't want to do a dramatic shift of going to bed at 10 o'clock to going to bed at 8 o'clock. If that's your goal, what you want to do is shift it back. People are different, and there's different ways to adjust your circadian rhythms in terms of light timing, these sorts of things. But 15 minutes a day. Go to bed 15 minutes. Some people could maybe do 30, but 15 minutes is really gentle. Let's go to bed 15 minutes earlier. And here's what you say, well, but Brett, you don't understand. I've got dishes to do. I've got to clean the house. I've got to catch up with email. I've got 2 hours of work before I go to bed, 2 hours of tasks to do. Well, here's what I'm saying is after you've adjusted, now you go to bed 2 hours earlier, right? These are rough numbers that you can adjust and play with, but I'm just giving you this so that you know the model, so you know how it's workable. So now you're going to bed at 8 o'clock, but you still had 2 hours cut out of your schedule. So you go to bed at 8, you'll wake up 4 hours later, 5 hours later, you get up. Now, I recommend those red light headlamps because then you can walk around your house, do stuff. You don't have to put all red light bulbs everywhere or anything like that. You're not getting a bunch of blue light. Also, it's illuminating the surface. It's not shining directly at you. That's what I do. I wear those. And so then you wake up, 4 or 5 hours later, like every other human did in the history of the world. Not every, but the vast majority, right? And then you do those 2 hours of things. And maybe that's just reading a nice book. Maybe that was your relaxation time. Maybe that's the time you make love. Maybe that's the time that you wash the dishes. Maybe it's the time you do whatever. So you're not losing time here. You're just shifting the time window 2 hours or so. You're going to bed a couple hours early. Then you're doing a sleep amount And you do it naturally. You do it to where you wake up, and you'll adjust over time to get to that point. And then you wake up, and then you get up, and then you do your 2 hours worth of stuff that you would have done 2 hours before bed. Then you wind down a little bit, go back to sleep for a few hours, and then you wake up at the same time, because again, we're talking about the average person who, needs to get up at 6 or 7 a.m. to do what they have to do in life. And then they have created biphasic sleep with no additional time cost. No additional time cost. The only difference is you are now getting better sleep, because we are not evolutionarily adapted. We are not meant to sleep for 8 hours. This is a propaganda lie. And when you start to sleep in 2 sections, and I read this, it's interesting because the part of the way I know this is not just it worked for me, it'll work for you. No, it makes sense from a human evolutionary standpoint of how humans are meant to live, number one. Number two, I started watching YouTube shorts on this just to learn as much as I could, because there's not much information out there. What's interesting in the comments, you know what people said? Oh my gosh, I tried this. Changed my life. And several other people said, yeah, I had trouble sleeping, so finally I just ended up, sleeping for 4 or 5 hours, waking up for a couple hours, doing some stuff, then going back to sleep for a few hours. And it works for me great. I feel amazing compared to how I was before. If you're trying to sleep 8 hours continuously, and hey, if you have something that is 100% working and you're just totally perfectly dialed in, or think you are, well, then maybe you don't need to change. I would still argue that, you think you feel good now, imagine if you were sleeping properly, the way that humans are meant to sleep. You probably feel better. 99% of cases you'll feel better. But there's not as much motivation to change for those people, right? But for people that are suffering, they're like, well, hey, I'm gonna figure out a way. But for every person, it's in the same way that if every person got more near infrared, even sitting out in the shade, the plants reflect near infrared, they would feel better. They would feel better. They would be getting, because the more in alignment you are with nature, the more you're getting the raw materials for good health, the better off you're going to be. Miranda says, I've never been able to sleep naturally. Yeah, that's what a lot of people say. Well, it's because you're trying to force. Again, make sure that you're not being exposed to a bunch of EMFs at night. Reduce that as much as possible, because that disrupts sleep as well. There are other things. But even if you had those other things in order, we're just not meant to sleep for 8 hours, as has been proven by those cultures. I did a deep dive on this and researched it because, like I said, I've been interested in studying sleep on and off for a quarter of a century, and this is the most profound discovery that I have found. And I've been doing it. I just thought, before I was doing it, thinking there was something wrong with me. I was like, well, yeah, something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can only sleep for 4 or 5 hours. Kind of felt like, what's wrong? Like trying to figure everything out. It's like, oh no, that's the way humans are supposed to be, man. You're supposed to wake up after 4 or 5 hours, get up, do some stuff. Some people would do, like in primitive cultures, they would do like spiritual practices, pray, meditate. Some would make love. Some would just read under candlelight. Some would go tend the livestock. Various things, like I mentioned earlier. But as long as you're not, here's what I would say. My caveat would be, obviously, you want to do things that aren't stressful. You want to avoid bright light, which is where the red headlamp comes in. And then when you start to, and I would say even before, this is what I do, is I found that once I get up and start doing things, like I want to just keep going. Sometimes I get really tired. Sometimes I'm like, I gotta go back to bed. But a lot of times I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. I don't need to go back to sleep. It's like, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And so usually after about 2 hours, I'm like, okay. And then I am able to go back to sleep. And then I sleep. And thankfully, thanks to you guys, thanks to running this group, I work a lot. But I'm able to be flexible. But even so, it doesn't really change, because if I do the 2 hour thing, which is about right, then I end up doing maybe 4 and 3, 4 hours the first section, 3 hours the next. Maybe I do 5 and 2. Maybe it's 3.5. And I've even done like shorter ones sometimes where it's like after 3 hours, stressful, a lot going on, whatever. Just don't sleep super well. Like 3 hours, I wake up, get up, do some stuff. I try to, make that first section closer to 5 hours. In other words, I don't just the lightest wake up. Oh, I gotta get up. No, I'm like, okay, well, just relax. And then a lot of times I'll fall back asleep. But if I start to be awake, stay awake, then I'm like, look over at the red alarm clock that's way across the room. Red, not blue, because blue light's terrible. And I'm like, oh, I've, been in bed for 4 or 5 hours. I can tell that I'm starting to wake up. My cortisol is increasing. I'm going to get up and do some stuff. So that is a complete game changer. You can do some research on your own about this. One of the things that I found helpful in research, which I haven't had great luck with AI, but on this, it was very, very helpful because the information is so obscure. And so I use DeepSeek to ask it some references because not many people have compiled this information. So you can go to DeepSeek if you're comfortable doing that. And research it that way, or you can just take my word for it that I've done the research and try it, right? Like, one of the ways to improve your health is experimentation, right? Like, you might think that something is a great food for you. Like, I was eating kidney organ meats recently. I started to have like back and kidney pain. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then I stopped doing it and it's like the pain went away. I'm like, okay, well, for some reason that's not working for me now. It might be a healing crisis. I don't know. But point is you get better by experimenting. And if what I'm saying is true, and I don't see how I could be wrong, which I rarely say, because like I'm super intellectually humble. I'm like, yeah, heck, we could be in a simulation for all I know. But when it comes to human health, I've studied it for so long that the way you're almost never wrong is if you look to human history and how humans have lived and start there as a baseline, you're much more likely to get things right. And I can't see how humans are supposed to sleep for 8 hours. I think it's total propaganda and nonsense. And apparently the people who watched that video, those 2 videos in the comments who either did it or who were doing it already or who tried it, got dramatic improvements in their health. So it's actionable, it's affordable, there's obviously no cost, and it makes sense. So it's definitely worth trying. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. Even if you disagree with me, even if you think I'm silly, if you bought into a different perspective than I have, which I would have told you the same thing, before I learned this. No, one section. I had actually discovered this before. I saw it and I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. And I tried to look it up, couldn't find any information. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't have time, but I looked into it deeper and whoa, everybody's doing it. All the cool kids throughout all of history in almost every culture were doing biphasic sleep, and they were incredibly healthy. That's how we made it to today. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Once again, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, sincerely. Those of you who reach out to me, because I've studied saunas for the last decade, and I help our group members get great discounts on saunas, as well as a special bonus program through ordering through me, and make sure they get the right sauna for their needs. Most salespeople, they just want to make a quick sale. They don't care. I take my time all the time. I message people. They message me, oh, I want this sauna. I'm like, well, can we talk about it? Because I think that you might want to know this. And like, oh my gosh, thank you. That's so helpful. Like just yesterday, I saved a guy $1,000 on electrical for a sauna because his electrician was overcharging him. So I provide value that nobody else does, and I obviously care about your health and wellness, and that's why people order their saunas through me, and then also recommend others to order their saunas from me. And for those people, I'm incredibly grateful because that's what allows me to run our group and provide the value that I am able to provide. So I look forward to reading your comments below, and I wish you a good nights, plural, good nights of biphasic sleep.